We're recording. Yeah, it's good. It's good to see you, mate.
Yeah, it is. So, guess we might as well get started with the debates again. Uh, First of all, I remember I watched both times, two times I watched your Sydney Equinox presentation, masterpiece presentation, and I remember at the end during the question and answer session talking about the pyramids in Egypt. You say they were to anchor the Orion male energy to Earth. Couple of problems with that. Well,
Sure.
in a documentary you can watch on the UFO TV Studios YouTube channel called The Cygnus Mystery, Andrew Collins presents very compelling evidence that the pyramids are actually outlined for the constellation of Cygnus. And I was at the In 5D Return to Atlantis conference in Sarasota, and Lisa Renee explained that the pyramids are laid out to with a connection to the Sirius star system. So I'm wondering, why are you so sure it's Orion and not Cygnus or some connection to Sirius?
Yeah, because I remember about 12,000 years ago being a part of the group that was here building them. And when we put them in that location, we aligned them with the stars directly up above. At that time, that's where the constellation was directly aligned. And also the shafts go off to Sirius as well. And I also remember having a life in Egypt where I laid in the sarcophagus myself, and I drew in the four elements because that's what it represents technologically speaking, or the constructural arrangement of one of the uses of the pyramids is to lay in the sarcophagus itself. And each corner of the pyramid represents the four elements, and you're the fifth element in the center of the pyramid, and you draw the four elements in, energetically speaking, and you can control those elements, and you can deconstruct your body and then project yourself out into the cosmos by the top of the pyramid. And that's what I did. And I remember doing that, and that's my understanding from it. Now, people have different opinions about their uses and why they're built and things like that. I can't say to you here, I've got an authentic rubber stamped official version. I'm just going on my experiences with the pyramids myself.
Okay, I'm glad to. Well, you sure seem to know what you're talking about from your own point of view. And another issue. This is very, very sensitive issue nowadays. Have you kept your word or changed your mind on the Fukushima disaster? Because I remember in that presentation you said, it's all Mother Earth being herself, and it's not caused by HAARP, and the radiation won't harm you. But I saw in your Alfred Weber interview that you did back in the day, he seemed to maybe convince you that maybe Fukushima was caused by some weather modification, earthquake causing technology, and maybe the radiation is a lot more worse. How do you feel on that now that time has passed?
Yeah, now that time has passed, I still feel that Mother Earth was straightening up on her axis a little bit with the Chile earthquake and the Japanese earthquake. I feel that people have taken advantage of the situation. So I'm going to say that they're both running in parallel. I'm not going to say that it's either one or the other. When they know, because they work of like the cosmological alignments, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a cosmology that is being used against humanity. So when people are studying that deeply, like the ruling elite that are using these energies against humanity, then they're using it to their advantage. So whenever they know a situation is going to occur, they will always prepare to be able to use the energetic patterns and the flow of energies to their advantage. They'll always manipulate it. So even though you'll have natural events that are occurring, inside of that or around that or parallel to that, they will always create their own events because they're not really creators of energy. They can only amplify or diffuse or manipulate what's already existing.
Yeah, I'm also of the opinion that the earthquake was Mother Earth, but maybe they use time travel technology to see it in the future. So David Icke provided compelling evidence that cameras planted in there were actually the bombs that caused it to go off at maximum capacity. The explosions went off at maximum capacity, so you wouldn't set it up like that unless it was planned in the future. So it was a combination of Mother Earth, but they knew it was going to happen or something like that. So, well, whatever the case, I bought some iodine to protect myself from that, and I think everybody else should do the same.
Yeah. I suppose we're more insulated down here in Australia from all that scenario. And for me, that's why my perspective is, and I don't spend too much attention on it because I guess it's just not affecting us directly in that way. Mm.
Okay. Well, I briefly mentioned on this in the In5D interview. You are the only person I know of that made reference to a malevolent race of extraterrestrials called the Orion Nordics, and you said they have a malevolent agenda of sorts on Earth, something involving implanting thoughts in people's minds, and you also said they're on the Galactic Federation of Light, which, from my research, is actually a malevolent alien council that masquerades as a benevolent alien council. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. So the Orion Nordics, what is their agenda, and should we give them as much attention as the Reptilians or the Zeta or Orion Greys? And do you think?
Well, they are reptilians.
They are the Orion Nordics reptilian?
Yeah, and a lot of people don't probably know the extent of the genetic lineages in the cosmos. When you look at all the feline races, and you look at all the bird races, and you look at all the reptilian races, they actually all go back to the draconians. You see, birds were originally raptors. People think that the bird tribes and the serpent tribes are at war with one another, but they're actually two tribes of the same origin. It's kind of like you've got the three Abrahamic religions really stem from the one origin, right? But they all think they're better than each other and they all fight against each other. It's the same setup. The Draconians were the original genetic origin of all the feline races and the bird tribes and the serpent tribes.
Okay. Speaking of reptilians, Andrew Bartzis, great guy to listen to because his Akashic record skills can answer anything basically. But he said there's 18 species of reptilian influencing life on Earth, and only one is evil. And I spoke to him about that at the N5D Return to Atlantis conference. And I told them, hey, isn't there three malevolent races? There's the Dracos, the Hydras, and the Sirius B Aquatics. And he said they're clones. Could you maybe elaborate on that? And when he meant those three malevolent reptilian groups are clones, that's why there's only one evil race out of the 18 that are on Earth.
Yeah, I don't agree with that statement. I don't agree that there's only one out of 18. I would say there's a lot more than that. There's just so many. There are groups from Sirius that are malevolent. The majority of life on Sirius is benevolent. In Orion, the ratio is probably different. The Orion Nordics, going back to that, because I do want to answer your question, but I need to give you an overall broader feel for what's going on out there as far as all the races are concerned. The Orion Nordics are a group of Draco reptilians that went around marauding all the genetics of all the races to create a super race. So they are basically a blend of everything. And also, they really focused on the element of beauty from a lot of the Pleiadian races, some of the Arcturians and what have you, and other star systems that we don't even have in our conscious awareness the names of. But they wanted to become a superior race genetically speaking. And that's who this Orion Nordic group is. And they do come across as a little bit angelic. But when you look at all the different groups, like groups from Sirius, groups from Orion, and groups from the Pleiades, which are the three main star systems that are influencing this planet. And the reasons being is because of the energetic streams of the star systems themselves. So instead of just looking at just the races, look at the stars and the consciousness of the stars and what they represent, and then that will give you an idea of why those races are attracted to Earth and why they've all got such a significant role to play and why so many of those beings from those star systems are incarnate on Earth right now, me being one of them, right?
Right. And Earth is a genetic royalty, as Alex Collier says. We're genetic royalty because we're so many genetic links.
So there's just so many groups of reptilians. Even within the realm of the Greys, you've got thousands of different diversified species. Some lean more towards the aquatic, some stay more towards the origins of the humanoid insect combination. Some are more humanoid, some are more bird-like. There's just so many variations of species out there. You can get it down to main groupings, I suppose, genetically speaking. But when it comes to saying that there's 18 main reptilian races and only one is malevolent, I don't agree with that, because there's probably half a dozen of them that you could class malevolent, and maybe 3 or 4 of them which are borderline, which have some benevolent tendencies, but more often than not they're malevolent or just very self-centered in their approach, and they lack a lot of empathy and compassion towards others. And some of them are just really sterile. They just doesn't even enter their thought that they're hurting anybody, but they don't intentionally go out to hurt anybody. So again, it's really understanding the different structure, the makeup, the setup of each race. Yeah.
Right. Okay. On a related note, gray aliens, are the malevolent Zeta Reticuli grays still influencing reality on Earth, or have they left the equation?
No, I say they're well and truly still in the equation.
And the Orion grays too?
Oh yeah. Oh
Okay.
yeah. There's a connection with the greys also to Alpha Centauri, which doesn't get spoken a lot of. But the Centauri have a political allegiance with the greys. Now because it's our nearest neighbour, it's the closest outpost, you could say, as far as star systems go. It's only 1.5 light years away. It's 4 light years away. Sirius is 7 light years away to 8. So Centauri's our closest neighbour, and it doesn't get spoken of very often. I'm still remembering the actual political structure that's going on here. Mars is a very big outpost when it comes to that Orion, Nordic, Reptilian, Grey cabal, because they're really a combined cabal. And the Greys that come from Orion are also based on Centauri. So the Centauri have a role to play in this as well. And they don't get spoken of very often, but they are really big on protocol. They're really big on the notion of royalty, the notion of nobility, according to them. And the Greys to them are their servants. So there's a bit of byplay going on when it comes to that. I would say that the grey races, the diversity of the grey races, the ones that lead to the amphibious side, and the ones that lead to the insectoid side, and the ones that are lead to the humanoid side, they're really factional between them. And the Zeta Reticulum have a very strong connection to the Centauri aspect, which to me are more the insect allegiance and alignment, whereas the more humanoid ones, there's quite a few subspecies within the humanoid greys that have a lot of compassion and a lot of empathy towards us, because they were once humanoid and they became the greys after all their body parts atrophying because they chose the path of technology and the path they took. They have actually returned to warn us not to go down that path.
Right. And lost my train of thought for a moment, but as far as control on the Earth, I could have sworn I heard somewhere that on December 21st, 2012, as a matter of fact, one thing that signified the start of a new age of consciousness was that the underground reptilian and gray bases on the Earth were shut down, and now the malevolent grays and reptilians only have control on the surface of the Earth. Is there any truth to that, or is there still underground control?
Yeah, plenty of still underground control. The only thing that's going to move them out eventually is the change in the energetic patterns of this reality. So when Mother Earth shifts even more, the energetic environment here will kill them. And I have communications with them on a regular basis, and I keep warning them, you guys have to leave or you're going to die. Simple as that, straight out. You got to leave or you're going to perish. And some of them are finding it really difficult because they've been in the Earth for a very long time, and they've got the vibrational anchoring of the Earth energy. Now, for them to go and live on another planet, they've got to be careful which planet they choose, because the energetic vibrational environment will kill them eventually, because their energetic fields break down, which then slowly has a ripple effect inwards towards their physical genetic makeup. So the vibrational fields of our environment are really, really important to our physical well-being.
Okay, well, there's a word on the street that there will be some big changes ahead. Anybody who pays attention to Alex Collier and Andromeda Council contactee Talik would know that in the December to January timeframe coming up, Earth will ascend into 4D Earth. And I'm also wondering, well, shouldn't they be saying Earth will ascend into 5D? Because some people have said we'll just go straight from 4D into 5D because time is an illusion, and that's the only difference between 3D and 4D, so we'll go straight into 5D. But whatever the case may be, is there any truth to what? Well, Alex Collier actually gave an exact date of December 3rd, and he was saying that all the way back in 1995 that he said his contacts were telling him. But Talik says, I can't give you an exact time frame. They're not telling me, but it will be January 2014. What's your take on that?
My take on that is it'll be another wave and another opportunity. Just like December 21 was, and just like March equinox was. For me, March equinox was majorly transformational, major. And the templates that came in place on that day facilitated a huge amount of change that I have been experiencing since, and that many people that I know have been experiencing since. And I feel that right now, like in the last week, I've just gone through another massive change, because I'm choosing to consciously connect with the biorhythms of this reality. So we just had this eclipse that just took place. We had solar flares that just took place. And every time there's a solar flare, you can understand that's a big projection of energy, which has come from the center of the galaxy to the center of the sun, which is coming to our core, to the core of the Earth. And if we know how to embrace them and go with those changes, then you can actually consciously go through major changes within yourself. And I feel that these next waves of energy that are coming through is what they've identified with, and it's another opportunity. I don't feel it's going to be an actual massive ascension shift to the degree that some people are thinking it's going to be. And the way that my ego interpreted that the shift was going to be going back in 2009 through to early 2012. When I was interpreting how the major shift was going to take place on the March equinox of 2013. I feel that there is shifts happening, but they're waves of shifts. So sometimes we go great leaps forward, and other times we take, little steps forward. So for me, it's another opportunity to take a great leap forward.
Yes. Speaking of going forward in time and whatnot, wanted to discuss the subject of timelines, because that's something that many people flat out don't understand. And also like government time travel technology, where they can look into the future and write history by seeing what's going to happen, and they influence it. Or in some cases, like Andrew Bartzis said, they recently sent people back in time to try to prevent whistleblowers from coming out. And I'm thinking, can you, to the best of your ability, explain how that's possible and why a grandfather paradox would not happen? Because Andrew Bashago said there is no grandfather paradox because time's all an illusion. You go back in time, kill your grandfather, you're not going to die. I mean, that's what I've heard. But how does time travel technology, like into the past, work?
Okay, I'll explain to you how I understand time, because then this will help to answer all those questions.
Yeah.
Right? So
yes.
There's one main organic timeline, and that's the timeline of intention that was set with the consciousness of the planet, the consciousness of the solar system, the consciousness of the galaxy, and the consciousness of the collective group soul consciousness of humanity and all other, kingdoms and beings involved in the co-creation of this reality. So you have the original intention of creating the reality and the direction it needs to head in. Now, other beings come along, like what they see, want to steer things in their own reality. So they will create a new timeline. And then what they do is they take that version of reality and they'll create a holographic version of it by steering it off into a new timeline. So it's a replicated copy of the organic one. And each time somebody goes off and diverts into a timeline, then whatever's required for those intending to take it on a different timeline, what the universe will do, or the creator, whatever you want to call it, is it will then create whatever those beings want to experience. So whether it's going to be a room, or it's going to be a building, or a planet, or a solar system, or a whole new universe, it gets created. And they go off in that timeline for as long as they need to. And now that could be for 1 year, it could be 100 years, it could be a millennia, it could be millions of years, it could be billions or trillions of years. It doesn't matter, whatever that experience needs to be, but eventually, always, it will always loop back to the organic timeline. Always. Eventually.
Okay, I understand that. And what you said about creating a timeline.
So, if someone goes back to try and kill their grandfather, what they've actually done is created a new timeline and a new version of the reality. That's why you will still exist. You won't be taken out of this organic timeline.
Yes, I get creating a timeline. I wanted to get into that. Andrew Bartzis, I bring him up a lot because he's a fascinating guy, but I watched a 20-part interview that he did on the Creating 5D YouTube channel, talked about Earth's history from a galactic perspective. I recommend it to anybody, but in that interview, they were discussing Earth's history, and they were talking about the subject of Zecharia Sitchin's books. And Andrew Bartzis said that Zecharia Sitchin's first 3 books were actually quite accurate. Yes, there is a Nibiru that the Anunnaki come from, is basically, well, wink, wink. But the whole thing about Sitchin's books being accurate, I spoke to Bartzis about this, but I want to tell you first. In Project Camelot, Kerry Cassidy interviewed former 33rd degree Freemason Leo Zagami, who said that Zecharia Sitchin was an Illuminati disinfo agent who got assistance from the Vatican. And in David Icke's documentary, Revelations of a Mother Goddess, mind control slave Arizona Wilder said, I saw Sitchin at Illuminati rituals. He's a shape-shifting reptilian. His job is to disinform about the reptilians and the Illuminati. And David Icke said, well, that explains why Sitchin warned me never to say anything about the reptilians in my work. When I asked him why he never said anything about the reptilians in his work, and when I asked Andrew Bartzis, how could Sitchin have been accurate if he was literally a reptilian disinformer, Bartzis said, hey, it's all disinformation. When you write the book, you create the timeline. And then he gave me a very, very complicated explanation that I don't exactly remember. So I'm thinking maybe you can help me with this. What was he trying to say? You write the book, you create the timeline. Sitchin was accurate.
Okay. It's interesting you should ask that question because I'm right in the middle of editing a 2-part and maybe 3-part Anunnaki interview series that I'm doing with somebody right now. It's a project I'm working on. And what has been expressed in that is that there is a campaign at the moment to make it look like the Anunnaki are our creator gods, and that we are a slave race. So it's another propaganda to diminish our value, our worth, who we are, and to make us fit into someone's basically political campaign to do with Earth. So while I feel Zecharia Sitchin to some degree as a man himself personally was genuine about wanting to basically interpret the tablets, I do feel he was influenced to a degree to interpret them a certain way. By who, by what sounds like from your information it could be a reptilian. He could have been influenced by the Illuminati. I don't see Zecharia Sitchin the man as an evil man with intent to do harm, but I do see him as being used to forward an agenda. And so when we were talking about the Anunnaki, I made sure to explain that this is a very narrow narrative. It's someone's perspective on the events of who the Anunnaki are, and it's my understanding that if you want to know about who the Anunnaki are, then intuitively connect to someone like Anu, intuitively connect to someone like Enki and Ninhursag, and go through that process to understand who these beings are, rather than reading somebody's written perspective about who these beings are. And when I go through that process, I get a somewhat different story. And I've also gotten that Akhenaten and Nefertiti are somehow connected to the Anunnaki. Now, whether they are Anunnaki or not, I'm not 100% sure, but there is a connection there somehow. And who are the Anunnaki? Who is Anu for creating? To me, Anu is the creator of the heart that pumps our blood. He's a genetic master geneticist. Now, the intention of creating our heart is the way it pumps has to do with the golden ratio of pumping. So here you have a biological device that not only pumps the blood, which is the receptor of our spirit to a degree, it's like an antenna which helps receive the signals of our spirit to a degree, but it also, with each pump, it's disseminating our soul light into this reality. So there's a lot more to this. You know, someone would not have created that if they had the intention of creating a slave race. The idea that we've just been created as a slave race, I think, is a political campaign. And the original Anunnaki, I feel, did not have the intention of creating us as a slave race.
Okay. Well, Andrew Bartz has said that Sitchin was a little incorrect about what the Anunnaki wanted the gold for after they created humans. Maybe that'll help you. I don't remember exactly what he said they wanted the gold for, but it was not to shield the atmosphere of their planet Nibiru.
No, well, beings want the gold because the gold is the physical manifestation of the sun. And when you understand who and what the sun is, then instead of actually connecting with the sun energetically speaking and having to go through the changes yourself internally to become what you need to become, people want to do it. They don't want to take the shortcuts. So when I say people, I don't just mean humans. I mean a lot of ET races. So they want to be able just to take a substance and have the substance do it for them. And so the quickest way of making that happen is to mine the gold on this planet and then utilize that gold and modify that gold, which is going to suit your genetic makeup and your and the individual race or the individual being's energetic makeup, as well as genetic makeup, to be able to consume the substance and alter you and empower you to be more powerful, more aware, access far more knowledge and much greater power in the cosmos than you ever have before.
Okay. And on the subject of Nibiru, when I spoke to you in my N5D interview, you said that you have said before that Nibiru is a twin of the sun. And I don't know. Okay, this is going to get a little complicated here. But Alex Collier has said that there is actually a second sun that's on the other side of the sun from where Earth is, which is why we can't see it. And that reminds me of what you said in your Sydney presentation, that there is a sun on the other side and we can't see it because it's exactly opposite. And not only that, Andromeda Council contacted Talek has spoken that Comet Elenin paved the way for a brown dwarf about the size of Uranus called Tacoma, which he claims is orbiting between Venus and Earth right now, but closer to Venus. And I think there's a cloaking device over it. And he says there's also a planet with Tacoma. So Zechariah Sitchin says Nibiru is in a 3,600-year orbit. You say it's a twin of the sun. I need you to elaborate on that. And I'm thinking, is the Nibiru you're talking about the other sun, or is it that Collier talks about, or Tacoma, which Talek talks about?
Yeah. To me, Nibiru is not the brown dwarf star. I don't know if I've ever said that. I may have, but I don't know. I don't recall saying that Nibiru is the brown dwarf star. I may have called it Planet X, but I don't recall calling it Nibiru, because Nibiru to me is a planetoid spacecraft. Now Nibiru could be in our midst and cloaked. I have no qualms with that one. But the brown dwarf star, I don't think that'll be cloaked because of its natural. It's a failed star, and I don't feel that the beings that live on it need to cloak it. I don't sense that. I don't feel it. So Nibiru, it's like you got the twin brothers. You got two brothers, and you got one. It's kind of like Cain and Abel, if you want to know. You know, it's like the infamous story of the twin brothers, and you got the jealous brother, and you got the one who makes it good. And you get
Alien right?
yeah, that it's always jealous and always wants to seek vengeance upon his brother who made it good. And that's what we're looking at cosmically speaking. They're the personalities of the sun who's made it good, and then you have the star, the dwarf star that didn't quite make it as a star. It's a failed star. So looking at the two characteristics, for me, that's what I run with, and that's what I go with. Again, it's my intuitive understanding of things, and I feel it's on the other side of the sun to Earth as we go around, so we don't get to see it.
So that's the sun that Alex Collier talks about that we cannot. Okay, and the brown dwarf, it's not Nibiru, it's just a coma. So and Tulloch also said that the Nibiru that the Anunnaki come from, that Sitchin talks about, has actually been put in an orbit that's way above the plane of the solar system right now. I don't know if you heard that, but that's what he said, and I figured I might.
I don't listen to, and I don't. I've heard of Tulloch, but I know nothing about his content. And you're the second, third person recently, so maybe I should start listening to what Tulloch has to say, because I honestly I don't listen to a lot of other people out there, so I'll have a listen to what he has to say.
Okay, I don't know if they toyed with his mind like the Galactic Federation of Light toyed with your mind. I
Well,
mean,
they toyed with my mind, all right, and you know, I'm still at war in here. It hasn't stopped, yeah, but it's getting better. I'm really starting to be me more than ever. It's good progress there.
I'm glad to hear that. Subject of aliens, insectoid aliens. They're both good and bad insectoids because they look bad, but I've heard a lot of people say they're actually a benevolent race, and the ant people from the cultures of the American Southwest, they seem to present the ant people as good aliens. I mean, what's your take on insectoids?
Yeah, again, every grouping has benevolent and malevolent races. So when a person has an experience with a particular type of race, like a mantis race, for example, then all of a sudden all mantis races are evil. It's the same with reptilians, for example, and we've got to be sure that we don't taint the whole species with the same brush. So it's got to be a case-by-case basis. And even when you have overall malevolent race, you'll still have members within that race that seem to be more compassionate towards humanity and want to do good by humanity because they don't agree with the cultural philosophies of their own race.
Okay. And about aliens, here's a conflicting issue that I've actually wrestled with. David Icke, in his books, says that the Illuminati bloodlines at the top of the Illuminati ladder of authority are reptilian aliens genetically interbred with a species of Nordic aliens, which he calls the Aryans, and there is a connection between the Hitler-Aryan race there. And Patricia Corey, I saw her in an interview with Alfred Weber. She thinks that the Illuminati bloodlines are a cross between malevolent reptilians and the Anunnaki from Nibiru, who created humans as a slave race. And I'm thinking, are the Aryans that David Icke talks about and the Anunnaki from Nibiru the same thing? Or is it possible maybe the Aryans are the Orion Nordics that you talk about?
To me, the Aryans are the Orion Nordics.
They are, huh?
To me.
Okay.
That's my experience with them. They are the Orion Nordics. And the Anunnaki have a completely different feel energetically. That's how you can tell. Now, there are some members of the ruling elite that are in alignment with the Anunnaki, but the majority of the ruling elite are in alignment with the Orion Nordic and that empire. So you've got the Reptilian Draco, you've got the Orion Nordic, you've got the Greys. Now, they're the three main that we know about. But what doesn't get spoken about is the feline races that are within that empire. What doesn't get talked about is the aquatic races that are within that empire. So again, our narrative is really quite limited. And if you want clues as to the amount of influence the feline races are having in our world that come from that empire because of the ability of stealth, of seduction, of manipulation, of the qualities of the feline races, they are qualities that are highly desirable for any ruling empire to make use of. Okay? And if you want to see how much of that is hidden in plain sight, look at the gnarly, big lion, dragon lion looking beings at the base of the stairs of the Asian empires. Look at the gnarly dragon lion looking beings and the flags of the British Empire, and you will see just how much influence. And look at also the to some degree some of the ancient Assyrian, which people have mistakenly labeled Anunnaki. Look at the Assyrian stone reliefs and you will see the lion beings and their muscular tones, really accurate depictions of what these beings look like, as well as the bird beings with the wings. A lot of people are mistaking the imagery of the ancient Assyrian stone reliefs to be Anunnaki, whereas the Anunnaki are more solid-build human beings with long, real curly hair, curly beards. That's the Anunnaki, and with a lot of them are blonde-haired, white-skinned, and some of them are red, ginger-haired with white skin. That's the Anunnaki, and also another grouping of the Anunnaki is what Akhenaten and Nefertiti look like from the Sirius system. So Anunnaki is more of a general term because the word Anunnaki means the peoples of Anu. And again, to understand who Anu is, and I feel that there's been a really blurring of the lines and blurring of the different groupings going on, because when you confuse a planetary race, now again, let's put ourselves in the shoes of a conqueror. If you want to conquer that race, you've got to make sure that you make it as messy and confusing as you possibly can, so no one can ever grasp onto anything tangible. No one knows who's who and what's what, so whatever you present is going to be taken as truth.
Okay. And I wanted to discuss something about timelines again. Andrew Bartzis, yet again, fascinating individual. Can't get enough of listening to his wisdom. But he gave a story about 9/11 that you'll never see a 9/11 truth or talk about. And that is that at its most complex level, 9/11 was a massive timeline incursion where tons of benevolent timelines were trying to stop 9/11 from happening when all sorts of malevolent timelines were causing it to happen, and that consequently resulted in 10 years of fear and the birth of a truth movement. And Bartzis has said that there is currently one major timeline that we're on with an upper and a lower minor timelines, and there used to be a lot more, but apparently on 9/11 they underwent incursion and convergence, and I don't know if they all converged to form just three, but did they? What's your take on that, on 9/11 being a timeline incursion?
Sure. Now, if 9/11 was a timeline incursion, I'd like to know how. My question would be, how does it tie in with New York? Why that location? And the effect it had on the buildings, because the buildings turned to dust in midair. There was no, what's that?
I can explain that for you if you want. I mean, there's the nanothermite that they
Yeah,
found.
no thermites used. Yeah.
But no, that only severed the columns, but the building was destroyed by a direct energy weapon. We don't know if it was nuclear bombs or maybe a direct energy weapon in Earth's orbit. Maybe either one could have worked. But if it was a massive timeline incursion, maybe there was one timeline was using nuclear bombs, the other one was using a direct energy weapon. And not only that, Bartz has said the planes were holograms, but they were also real planes because it was a massive timeline incursion. That's what he said. And I'm thinking, well, maybe you can elaborate on that for me. And everybody else too.
Yeah, I can't. What I can say about my take on it is that it has to do with, I agree with Andrew that it created a truth movement. I agree, obviously, there. But what the tower is actually representing is the two pillars of duality. And with those coming down is the symbol of the ending of the cycle of duality. The intense version of duality we've been experiencing and the integration of duality. So metaphorically and symbolically, those two towers coming down also was the beginning of the end of the rule and domination over humanity of these ruling groups as well that have been ruling. Now, what I'm seeing is three main layers. I'm just going to go off on a bit of a tangent because I need to explain the three layers that I only now am starting to publicly discuss. And when you look at these three main layers, it becomes quite obvious what's going on the planet, because we've had the ruling cabal on the planet, and they dug the hills in, and their overlords are coming to take over this planet. They're moving in right now, which is layer 2, and that's the Orion Nordic cabal. And then, so layer 1 is being removed and layer 2 is now moving in. And a lot of people are screaming out for layer 2 because they're going to now look at these guys as the good guys. They're going to present really well, but it's the new face of the old guard. And there's a lot of factional fighting going on between the two layers. And the second layer will somewhat give us new technologies, somewhat, new financial systems, some financial relief, but it'll still have a very authoritarian flavour to it. My main concern is layer 3, because after we go through that emotional upheaval of the transferring from layer 1 to layer 2, layer 3 comes in. Now, layer 3 is where everyone's burping butterflies and farting rainbows and all this new technology and because even in layer 2, you're going to still see the boundaries planetarily speaking, even though we're going to be introduced to our cosmic brethren, so to speak. We're still going to be pretty much confined to a certain degree on the planet. But when layer 3 comes in, that's when the big daddy of the intergalactic and universal cabal steps in and removes layers 1 and 2 totally. That's the one where the boundaries of the playpen just go cosmic. And we're going to be introduced to galactic communities, and it's all going to be utopian society. That's the main one to be concerned about, because after that, there's just us. So we don't need anything to come in and tell us who we are. We don't need anything to come in and basically the line to be really taken into consideration is those who seek custodianship under the guise of love. That is what we need to be really mindful of, because as subtle and sophisticated as that group, layer 3, is going to be, very euphoric in its nature, it's still seeking custodianship under the guise of love. So when you look at those 3 and you can understand the energetic patterns of those 3 layers, the moment anyone says anything out there in the public arena, you can just grab and go, right, that fits into layer 2. Oh, right, okay, so that's layer 3. And the 3 layers become very obvious. And the more you spend time contemplating on them, the more you begin to distinguish the vibrational frequencies of the 3 layers, and you'll see where actually they all fit in, and you'll begin to see this agenda that's being implemented on humanity. Because even layer 3's already started. Through channelings, through websites, through, there's a lot of people that are already the puppet masters of layer 3 that are already promoting that agenda.
Okay, and on the subject of conspiracies, you've said, hey, don't obsess too much about conspiracies. You're only going to feed them by thinking about them. But a conspiracy theorist will tell you, what are you talking about? You're telling us to act like ostriches with our heads in the sand. We got to think about it. How do you draw the line there?
Yeah, I'm definitely not asking you to be with like an ostrich. Definitely not. No, I've always been somebody who promotes to be proactive. But you need to draw the line in your own line, in your own way, because it's somebody's journey to become involved proactively in, in like as a political activist. It's not my role to go and demonstrate on Wall Street, for example. I'm doing my role, playing my part. So I'm not going to judge anybody for wanting to get involved in whatever that is they desire and they have a passion for to get involved in. That's their life, that's their journey and their experience and their learning. So I don't ask anybody just to sit back and just let things happen, but I do want to bring to awareness is just how much these mind control programs are trying to overly draw people into the drama vortexes and just feed off people's energy. So we have to really find that discernment within ourselves and work out how far we take any given situation.
Right, that does make sense. And I've heard other people say the same thing. Speaking of conspiracies and aliens, I've heard that a group of aliens called the Shadow People are a malevolent race of aliens on Earth that were actually on Earth before humans ever came here. And someone said they are bad. They do have a little bit of a malevolent agenda. Do you know anything about the shadow people aliens?
Not directly, no. No. I can say I've been present before the six lords of darkness on this planet. In this reality, I've addressed them. Well, they summons me, and I turned up, and that's when I started breaking free from their hold, because I thanked them for all the misery and all the suffering that they put me through. So, and what they looked like was, in Lord of the Rings, when the guy puts a ring on and he sees that entity, and it's kind of really murky and grey, in like the astral realm, that's pretty much what they looked like, sitting on their stone thrones. They had that. That's how they appeared to me.
Yes. About aliens, sort of. People should be able to figure out that the moon is an artificial body. It's so in your face obvious, but people don't want to accept it because they don't want to believe in aliens. But Alex Collier says there's actually 7 moons in our solar system that are artificial bodies. And he gave, besides the moon, it's Mars's moon, Phobos, Jupiter's moon, Ganymede, and Saturn's moon, Iapetus. Can you name the other 3? Or are there more, maybe?
No. I don't have that in my conscious awareness, no.
Nice to know which moons are.
Well, definitely. I know of Phobos and our moon, definitely. I don't know the others.
Ganymede and Iapetus were the ones.
Yeah, I haven't looked into that. No.
Okay. But speaking of Saturn, is David Icke right about what he said in his most recent 10-hour presentation? I was at his presentation in Wembley, London, as a matter of fact.
That would have been fantastic.
Yeah, unfortunately, I slept for about 45 minutes to this part 2 because of the jet lag. So that was the unfortunate part there. But all in all, it was a great presentation. And he went into the Saturn moon matrix idea. And he even said before the solar system cataclysm from like 6,000 to 9,000 years ago, or what, don't know the exact date, maybe you go by different timeline. But he said that after that cataclysm, the Saturn was the Earth's sun. And then after that cataclysm, Saturn went way out. The sun became Earth's new sun, and the rings were put on Saturn to become the broadcasting system that it is, which I know you've talked about. And is he right when he says that Saturn projects energy to the moon, which amplifies the energy down to Earth to, among other things, suppress Earth's feminine energy? Is that right?
To a degree, it does do that, but that's only one thing going on. I don't agree that the Saturn was the original sun of the solar system. No, I don't agree with that at all.
Okay. And, he also got that idea from this guy, or is it David Talbot, who wrote a book called The Saturn Myth. And the idea was that Saturn was a lot closer. And he also said that many, many years ago, Saturn had explosion from within it, which caused a crescent shape to appear around it. And many symbols that you see of like a crescent around like a circle or star something, that's actually Saturn symbolism and not sun symbolism. And Talbot talks about that. Ike said, hey, the big penny drop for me was realizing that much of what is sun symbolism is actually Saturn symbolism. He said that. And I'm thinking, is there any truth to that claim that many years ago Saturn had an explosion which caused a crescent to appear around it?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't say I don't know. But one thing I do know is that there's certainly a political agenda to make Saturn more of the originating entity of this solar system and of Earth, because the fight between Saturn and the Sun has been raging for eons of time. Saturn is the imposter. The Sun is the original consciousness that created this solar system.
Okay. All right, we got 12 minutes. All right, let's see if we do this on the fly here.
That's all right. I'm not anal about the time. It's quite fun.
Right, we shouldn't worry about time. It's a third dimensional thing, right? So, something I wanted to ask you about Alex Collier said that his Andromeda Council, not Andromeda Council. It's not the council he talks with, but Andromedans told him that astrology was originally a plan devised by those higher dimensional aliens to map out the stars. And they told him that it's turned into a whole belief system called astrology. And I'm thinking, whoa, no way. You're telling me astrology is fake? I mean, that can't be right. I'm thinking the aliens must have toyed with his mind there. The bad aliens toyed with his mind to make him think astrology is not real. Do you think he's wrong there?
I think he's absolutely wrong there.
Yeah. I think so too.
There is a religion that's been created out of it. They call it astrotheology. There's definitely a religious element to it, no doubt about that. But the stars are connected to Earth and to us directly, and we are transmitting back to the stars. So they not only influence our lives here, but we also influence them by our experiences here.
Okay. So,
if you want to get a really good understanding, I know you're processing a lot mentally, but just hold off for a sec. If you want to get a really good understanding about astrology, like true astrology, think about your relationship with those stars, because that's what it's all about. It's all about relationship with the planets in the solar system and our relationship with the stars themselves as beings. So go to that place within yourself, and then you'll really understand the real astrology.
All right. Now I want to touch a really sensitive topic. It just occurred to me.
Yeah.
The subject of Jesus existing.
Yep.
Now, David Icke, among other people, has said Jesus and Horus from Egypt are the same fictional entity. There's your proof Jesus doesn't exist. And he goes through all the material. But I watched a documentary of Pleiadian alien contactee Billy Meyer from Switzerland. He said that the story of Jesus is actually a fictionalized version of a story of a real-life being known as Emmanuel, who is the son of a man begotten by a Pleiadian extraterrestrial and an Earth woman named Mary. And the story of Jesus is a fictional version of this guy named Emmanuel. And I've heard you say Jesus, well, he did exist. He stepped away from the Earth and let her get attacked, or something to that effect. The subject of Jesus existing. Is Billy Meyer right? Are you right? Is David Icke right? How to describe
Well,
it?
I'm going to give you my take on it, and that is that the name Jesus, for me, the character of Jesus given to us by the church, by the priestly caste, is a false character. Did the Christ exist, come to the earth and die, not resurrect, but die? Yes. As far as I'm concerned, yes. And how I know that is because I communicate with the sun, and the sun from time to time will have an incarnation on this planet. And when the sun came to the earth, simultaneously the earth had an incarnation on her body, earthly body as well. And they walked this earth together. So here you have the twin flames from the sun and the earth, because inside the earth is a female version of the sun. That's what's inside this planet. Inside the crust, the eggshell. So those two together came to this planet to take responsibility for their creation here and to walk together on this planet. And it was the female version of the Christ energy that was the main player 2,000 years ago. You won't hear much about that, but she was the main player. She's the one that really stirred the power elite on the planet at the time. It took them 300 years to recover from those two walking the earth before Constantine could have introduced a new religion. Well, that group, because the rest of the planet was in harmony with those teachings and slowly they got infiltrated too. You know, in South America, he was called Quetzalcoatl when he turned up. You know, in here in Australia, the Australian Aborigines, when he turned up 2,000 years ago, called him the Rainbow Serpent. But they also understand his cosmic lineage and his universal lineage in the way of his consciousness and the being that he is and the being that walked this earth. So when you go beyond just the Christian westernized view of the consciousness of the entity that actually walked the earth, then you see a much different picture about what actually happened. And so for me, the worship of Jesus is actually the worship of the false Christ, is the worship of the false deity, because we've been given that name and that image and that story by the priestly caste, which is exactly the same priestly caste that crucified the Christ when he turned up. And why people don't see that, I don't know. They're just not getting that part. So that is a major understanding. So the sun itself, meaning the golden one, which is o Christos in Greek, they then put the sword or the crucifix into his name, which made him Christos, and that is how the name came about, and that's who he was, the golden one that walked the earth. And that's where the name comes from. The name Jesus, well, that's different. That's a different being altogether. That's a created story to do with the Flavians, which were ruling elite families at the time, and it's a mishmash. It's a complete mishmash of stories.
Okay. By the way, at 8:28, well, my time 8:28. For 2 minutes before the session, I got a favor to ask of you to come on a radio show for me that I'm starting myself. But before we do that, I just want to discuss something that you've said. You have said that, among other things, you don't meditate anymore, and you said it's actually getting into a ritual of sorts if you meditate a lot. So you don't do it at all. I mean, why would you stop meditating entirely when many people say it can only help you to meditate?
Okay, what I meant by that, and I probably didn't explain myself properly, was when people put, hollow sync stuff on, they go through these meditative rituals, and they meditate and they call in the ascended masters and, those sorts of meditations is what I was alluding to. So I probably wasn't clear enough in my explanations. I meditated 2 days ago, but what did I do? I just sat there, I went within myself and went through the process I needed to go through. It's a really organic, natural, you can call it contemplation. You can give it whatever name you want to give it. But as far as the ritualistic practice of meditation, people set aside that amount of time each day, that like 10 o'clock every day they meditate, they connect with the ascended masters, they bring the light in, that ritualistic process is what I was alluding to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, actually, I think I might as well get to my favorite right now. I started my own radio show on Blog Talk Radio called Nature of Reality Radio. I got a guest coming up this Wednesday, unless something comes up, and I've just contacted about 20 other people that would fit perfectly for my show.
Nice.
It's basically going to be first come, first serve, but I checked your time. It would be 9:30 a.m. on it would be Thursday in your time, Wednesday at 6 p.m. for me. Is there any way in the near future you might want to come on my show?
Yeah, let me just write that down. I'd love to come on your show.
Yes.
I
I'll
would.
cover conspiracy theories, extraterrestrials, astrology, consciousness, anything that exposes.
What I love about you is your authenticity. You're just honest. You're just upfront. You don't beat around the bush, and I love that.
What people think about me is none of my business or concern. I know I don't have a worry about reputation. David Icke says it's the worst prison ever, so I believe that.
Yeah, but I also want to acknowledge your good qualities. So I'm not. It's important also to understand acknowledgement.
Yes.
Yeah, very important. So I'm acknowledging you, and I think that's important. So what was it, Thursday?
No, well, your time will be Thursday. I'll just give you my time, and I guess you could check the converter.
Yeah.
I live in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It would be, in my time, Wednesdays from 6 to 8 p.m., and that's Eastern Standard Time where I live. Wednesday, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The radio show is on Blog Talk Radio. It's called Nature of Reality Radio. And I guess it'll be first come, first served because I contacted like 20 people. So love to have you on. And actually, I have a guest this Wednesday, and I think Sean Cohen, metaphysician from London, will be on the show the next Wednesday. So it'll have to be in my time, 3 Wednesdays from now.
Yeah, because I'm going away on Thursday. I've got to go visit my mum for her 83rd birthday on the East Coast. So I'll be gone for about 10 days. Okay, and I've got an appointment on the 20th. What day did you say you want me on? Let me just check.
This is my time I'm going by. Wednesday from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on my radio show. The earliest Wednesday I could have you on would be the 3 Wednesdays from now. The upcoming Wednesday, I can't have you. The Wednesday after that, I can't, but the one after that would be the earliest time I could have you on.
All right. So, that'll be a Thursday for me. So,
I think it's 9:30 in the morning in your time. I'm not positive. I think that's what it is.
All right, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my calendar now and block it out. So I'm doing it right this moment. So are you saying it's the 21st, just to clarify the date? Because this Thursday...
Wednesday is... Yeah. For me, the Wednesday is the 6th. The next will be the 13th, and then it will be the 20th. Well, the 20th for me, but the 21st for you.
Yep.
Okay.
I can do that. That'd be
okay. I'd love to have you on. I'll mark you on, and I'll How should I keep in touch with you? Should I just send you an email on Our Journey Home website and say, hey, this is Andrew Fisher, just an update on the show? I'll probably maybe send you 2 more before the show comes on, just to make sure we're in touch.
No, I'll give you my email address right now. So 9 through till it's 2 hours, is it?
Yes, and unfortunately, I need to call someone to get me a pen. Hey, can you hand me a pen, please? I can't get up because if I do, the cord will fall out of the computer.
No worries at all.
Okay.
So it'd be 2 hours. So it'd be my 9:30 to 11:30. So I'm blocking myself out till midday that day. That's awesome. Thank you. I appreciate the invite.
Okay, and I'll probably spend the first 15 minutes of the show talking and giving news or something before I have you on. I just want to do that first. So
yeah.
So you're gonna give me I'll make sure I don't give your email address to anyone else. You have my word on that one.
I'd appreciate that.
If they want to contact you, they'll just have to contact you through the Our Journey Home website. And
you can always contact me through my website, through my email address. That's fine, Gary. Andrew. Yep. That's fine, mate. Anytime. I'm just waiting for it to go through. I've already hit the go button, so it'll pop in the IM very soon. And that was with Andrew Fisher. Wow. And what was the name of your show again?
Nature of Reality Radio.
Brilliant. Thanks, mate. I'm chuffed. Yeah.
You didn't give me your email address yet.
The thing's turning. You can ask me another question if you want.
Oh, okay. So you're going to send me an email, and I'm not going to. You don't have to give me your email address, right? That's what you're saying.
I've written it, and I've hit the go button, and the little thing is turning. I'm waiting for it to actually go through.
Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't know what you meant by that. But
yeah, it's just sitting there spinning for some reason. It's weird. Anyway.
Okay.
And if it doesn't go through, I'll email it to you straight away as soon as we finish.
Okay. You have my email address, fanof2012@gmail.com.
I'm sure I do, but I'll just double check that because it'll be in the booking.
It was in the booking for the fan of the number 2012@gmail.com because that was a big pay attention to 2012 phenomenon. That's for that.
Yeah. No, I got your email address, so if it doesn't go through, I will send it to you.
Oh, okay. So you still want to keep going even though our session is up?
Yeah, you can go. Yeah, we'll go another 15 minutes. I'm good with that.
15 minutes. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. In regards to the Andromeda Galaxy, this came up. A woman by the name of Ashayana Dean, I think her name is pronounced. I saw her interview on Project Camelot. It was a lot of talking she did. I think she said that the Milky Way and Andromeda were actually combined before, and then they split. But now everybody's saying they're coming back together again. What's the significance behind them splitting? And if they are coming back together again, what does that mean?
Well, just like you've got the sun and the earth. Okay, so you've got the masculine and the feminine. Because I'm going to go back the other way now. So our star becoming the major star system in this galaxy of the same being, the consciousness of that being becomes Orion. Earth becomes Sirius. And then when you take them from their star system level of consciousness, you take them to their galactic level of consciousness. You go to the feminine is the Milky Way galaxy and the masculine is the Andromedan galaxy. So when you follow the lineage of the consciousness of these beings up, then you get to that understanding that the Andromedan galaxy is the twin flame and the husband galaxy to our Milky Way galaxy.
Okay, that makes sense. And in regards to alien councils, the Galactic Federation of Light and the Galactic Confederation of Light, they're both bad, right? Are they both the same thing? I just want to clear up the confusion there because I've heard Federation of Light and Confederation of Light. Are they the same?
As far as I'm concerned, they're the same. But you'll have different groups that will present themselves and they'll try to use a labeling system on Earth. But basically what you're looking at there is the Federation of Free Worlds is like the United Nations. And then the Galactic Federation of Light is more a spiritual arm of the Federation of Free Worlds. So it's has more of a spiritual connotation to it So you've got your main political council, and then you've got like a spiritual council, which is affiliated with that main political grouping.
Yeah, because I've heard a Tolek say that the Galactic Federation, which is the good guys, they actually work for the Andromeda Council. They basically do everything on their own, but when it comes to very serious issues, they go up to the Andromeda Council to ask for permission to do something. Do you know when the Galactic Federation would need to seek permission from the Andromeda Council to do something?
Well, the Andromeda being the husband galaxy to this one, you've got more of that father energy. So you've got the overseeing father dominant sort of masculine traits coming from the Andromedan galaxy into our galaxy. So there's political groups inside of the Andromedan galaxy that innately feel a responsibility towards the goings on within our galaxy. Now, some of them are self-deluded in that role. It's probably a good way to put it. And there's political groups that have been long formed within the Andromedan galaxy that probably see themselves as though they have an actual right to come here and interfere. But they're doing what they think is right. But they don't realise that they don't actually have the authority that they thought that they had.
Okay. In regards to, once you once told me, when I asked you this on In5D Radio, you once told me that when it comes to the subject of numbers of dimensions of consciousness, it's really a matter of perspective. Like Matias De Stefano, I watched an interview. He speaks Spanish, but they translated one of his presentations into English, luckily, and he said there's 22 dimensions of consciousness. Well, that's just his perspective. But I remember you said that what you see as the fifth dimension of consciousness is what someone might see as the edge of the visible universe. Where did you get that analogy that the fifth dimension could be seen as the edge of the visible universe?
Oh, simply because when you look at my model that I'm presenting, and you got the two main voids within the universe, and you've got the great void. Now that great void and everything inside the arena, what I call the grand or the great arena of this universe, is what other people see as the entire universe. So what I call the top of the fourth dimension, people are seeing that as the 10th, 11th, 12th dimension in their model.
Okay, that makes sense. Oh, this just occurred to me. Something else Andrew Bartz has said. I'm sure Andrew Bartz is right about this, but Australia actually being a floating island that can seed itself on any planet and affect the consciousness energy of that planet. If that's true, you must be familiar with it because it's your homeland. Can you elaborate on that Australia is really a floating island that can affect the consciousness of any planet?
I would say I haven't heard anybody mention that before. Do I know it to be a floating continent? I think every continent on this planet is floating.
Well, but he means floating from space, planet to planet. It can transmit itself like that at will and change the consciousness of a planet.
I'm going to say that's the same with every continent because of they can do it in an energetic template sense, but I don't feel that Australia is unique in that role. But I do know that Australia is playing a major role because of the originating roots of the consciousness of the template of this land is so old. It's part of like you go over to New Zealand, for example, that land and the consciousness of the mineral kingdom that is the foundation for that creation of that land is the birthing of new consciousness, a new way of expression in this world. Australia is the oldest land continent, which is a little bit hard to grasp, but it has to do with, instead of seeing it just in the physical, you've got to go into the energetic templates of it and the consciousness of the beings that are the Australian continent. And then when you do that, like even if you go to the North American continent or wherever in the world, an African continent, Africa is actually the next oldest or youngest on from Australia. Australia's the oldest. Then you'd get the African continent. And then you'll go into the middle area of Asia and the Middle East, and then it branches out there. If you're going to have a chronological view of the energetic templates of the consciousnesses of the land masses on the planet. So Australia is the originating one. of the beings, and that is how I understand what Andrew is saying. So it's probably a slight different interpretation on the way he's presented it.
Okay. And another subject on planets. John Lear, UFO researcher and a great pilot, he said that one of NASA's biggest lies, NASA should stand for not always a straight answer because it lies to us so much, but probably one of the biggest lies they've told us is that every planet, John Lear claims, in the solar system has life, because every planet has its own consciousness, which in turn means it has its own filtering system. Now, the question I want to know is that life in other dimensions of consciousness on that planet, or if you were to fly there, you would actually see it? Well, what's the truth to what he's saying there?
I'd say for the majority of the planets, you will have an interaction on this level, but all of them have life on other levels. Even this planet has life on other levels. I've interacted with some of it, but we don't see it with our eye spectrum, but we can experience it. So it's a multi-dimensional solar system, because our solar system is a fractal of the universe. So all life in the universe is represented in this solar system.
Okay. That's true with every solar system, right? Where every, regardless of how hot the star may be, every planet has its own filtering system, which will be able to cope with it to the point where it can sustain life. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, there's life out there everywhere. Huh?
Everywhere.
Yes. And this is the only universe with light. I remember you said that. I don't think we can imagine what the other universes look like.
Different constructs. Yeah.
Yes. And I guess one more question before we call tonight. Are you familiar with the work of the Silver Legion? Because every night before I go to bed, I actually say, Silver Legion, as my physical body sleeps, take me. I want to fight for you or work for you or do whatever I can to fight for your cause. And I think that their Earth contactee, Tanath, seems like a pretty genuine woman. Are you familiar with them, and would you recommend that people do what I do?
I am not familiar with them. There's just so many groups out there. I haven't had a personal interaction with the Silver Legion that I'm aware of. If you feel inclined to do so, then you must have some sort of allegiance with them somewhere along the line. You could have been a member of the Silver Legion somewhere in your travels in the cosmic arena, in the galactic arena. You may have had interactions with them. You may have been at odds with them. You've got some sort of connection with them, and that's what you're exploring, and that's important for you. So I can't say, yes, do it, or no, don't do it. I just say flow with what you're feeling is good for you. It's really important to do that.
Well, the thing is, Tanath claims that you won't remember your experience when you awaken with them unless you can astral project. So unless you can astral project, you can't expect to remember how you assisted them when you awake every night. So that's the downside.
Everybody who's got some sort of an awakened state going on, the majority of us are working really hard behind the scenes every night. Every night, I'm always coming back in my body, and it's like, that was a hard night. We're very busy doing a lot of work. A lot of us don't even realize just how much work we're doing. If you don't remember, that means your soul, your greater beingness, Big Andrew, has set it up that way. If Big Andrew wants you to remember, it doesn't matter what anyone says about the Silver Legion, you will remember, because that overrides even the Silver Legion's intent. Your soul intention overrides everything. So whatever you're experiencing in the way that you're experiencing it is the way you set it up. Yeah. Always remember that you, at the end of this whole play that we're experiencing here, this whole drama, whatever you want to call it, it's because the way we've set it up. And you and your soul is the overriding factor in all of this.
All right. Well, thanks for the session, George. Thanks for going 15 minutes past. I'm sure you must have liked this, but I'd love to interview you again for my show in 3 Wednesdays, or in your case, 3 Thursdays. So hope to hear from you soon. You have my email, so just contact me.
Yeah, it still hasn't gone through. Little thing's still turning, so I'll email you.
I don't think it's going to, so I think we're going to have to deal with this another way. So when you can, just send me something. So I guess we'll call it a day. I learned a lot from you. I'll listen to this all over again just to refresh my memory.
Yeah, I'll get this to you within 24 hours, the MP3.
Thanks a lot, George.
Yeah, thank you too, Andrew. I do appreciate it.